Hello everyone, Ace here, and today let's talk about a rather interesting plot twist with regards to the whole Kirsche Cancellation controversy, because a rather familiar face for this channel has decided to enter the fray, namely Fat Otaku Aka Dev, who, if you are familiar with some of his more recent takes, decided to take up exactly the sort of position that you would think with regards to Kirche getting cancelled. Though for what it's worth, he is not alone on this, as Mama Oko also decided to chime in with the exact same take. Though admittedly, since I'm not really familiar with Mama Oko, this video is mostly going to be about Dev. But to understand what exactly I'm talking about, let's take this particular Twitter thread from the beginning. As Triggered tweets, quote, "It's a sea of red," unquote, and provides images of some of the very many negative reviews that crime boss Roche City has received following their cancellation of their sponsorship deal with Kirche. The end of the sponsorship deal, of course, being in response to pressure from the harassment and cancellation campaign that Kirche is currently facing, meaning that the developers behind crime boss Roche City bent the knee, hence the negative reaction. Mama Oko responds by stating, quote, "I will be honest, I feel like this is wrong. The left does this too, and we laugh at them for it," unquote. To which Crust Needs Stuffing responds by stating, quote, "Oh hey, it's you, it's only okay if they do it, got it. They made the rules, we play now and have not tried before. Your comment is Omega L," unquote. Mama Oko responds by saying, quote, "So you're saying it's okay to do this because the guys we don't like do it. Doesn't that make us no better than them?" unquote. It is at this point that Dev first rears his ugly head and responds by stating, quote, "It's cancel culture when it hurts you, and it's consequence culture when it helps you, didn't you know?" unquote. So yes, Dev is seriously trying to take up the position of both sides equally bad in the Kirche cancellation campaign by claiming that it's cancel culture to leave negative reviews on a game on Steam because the developers chose to bend the knee to pressure and end their sponsorship of Kirche. This, of course, is not cancel culture. No one is doxing the home addresses of the developers. No one is contacting their employers to try to get them fired. And no one is going after their relatives. You know, the things that cancel culture actually does. So to say that this is cancel culture is simply ludicrous. Now, like I said, I'm not exactly familiar with Mama Oko. I am, however, very familiar with Dev, and I know that he knows better than this. So I can only deduce that he's arguing in bad faith here. And while Dev doesn't comment anymore on this particular line of the thread, there is a separate sub-thread where he does discuss his take a little bit more. As Artemis Fowl also responded to Mama Oko, in his case stating, quote, "This is the if you kill the terrorists, they win argument," unquote. To which Dev responds by stating, quote, "This is the no bad tactics, only bad targets argument," unquote. Artemis Fowl replies by stating, quote, "No, society has already determined the rules and tactics. You keep pretending that they have any actual solutions that can stop the left from committing the abuses it already has, and extract goodwill from them. Your criticism will constantly fall flat because you prefer the slow march to the left, instead of allowing G pendulum to actually swing back to the center. No bad tactics, only bad targets isn't a compelling argument when we both watch the left willing to move to violence constantly while the right has been remarkably reserved given how much you pretend and try to both sides this topic," unquote. Dev responds by stating, quote, "Violence? This is about the canceling shit. Nothing is violent here. My criticism has always been perhaps we shouldn't cancel people, and it's always been directed at anybody who does it. That has been a consistent stance for like a decade now," unquote. Artemis Fowl replies by stating, quote, "Claiming one side is saying no bad tactics when that side is clearly not taking up every tactic of its enemies invalidates that argument. This isn't even canceling them. People have the right to leave a review and not buy a game. Canceling is threatening employers to get someone fired or debanking them. Stop watering down the definition," unquote. And of course, this is the point where Dev decides to oh so conveniently ignore this particular thread because he's lost the argument, and even he realizes that he cannot salvage it. Because ultimately, Artemis Fowl is completely correct here. For a start, and as I've previously mentioned, leaving a negative review on a game's Steam page because the developers have done done something that you find to be utterly reprehensible, like bending the knee to a cancellation mob, well, leaving that negative review and criticizing that developer is not cancel culture. Cancel culture is deliberately trying to get a person fired, or alternatively doxing and trying to threaten them into quitting. And when I say threaten them, that means more than just them alone, as these cancel mobs will, like I've already mentioned, frequently try to go after their loved ones too. And as Artemis Fowl has also correctly pointed out, the right does not use all of the same tactics that the far left has. The right has, for what it's worth, shown a fair amount of restraint. Admittedly, that restraint is starting to go away to some degrees, yet even as things currently stand, the right, and including the far right, have not done things that are anywhere near as bad as the far left at this point. Feel free to, of course, criticize the things that they have done wrong, but trying to argue both sides equally bad is, frankly, ridiculous. The far left are easily far, far worse. But let's move on to a third factor to this situation that Artemis Fowl did bring up, and that I do believe he is correct in also saying. Because Dev does indeed prefer the slow march to the left. He has openly stated this himself in videos past. But given that particular bit of information, that does add some rather interesting context to why he is trying to both sides this situation. See, both sides equally bad is, for what it's worth, technically a logical fallacy. On the one hand, it's a thought-terminating cliche. It's something that's said to try to end the conversation then and there and try to make Dev appear smarter than he actually is. But there is a more nefarious purpose behind this, because it's also a whataboutism fallacy. And whataboutism fallacies are a defensive tactic as far as logical fallacies are concerned. They are used as a means to defend something that's bad by admitting it's bad, but then going, but what about the other guys? Which is to say, when you think about it, that Dev is ultimately defending the left engaging in cancel culture in this situation. And it's not just on technical grounds here, but also on practical grounds once you think about it. Leaving negative feedback for the developers because they bent the knee to a cancellation mob and ended their sponsorship with Kirche, well, that's one of the very few effective options that customers have of providing feedback to companies. But more importantly to this discussion, it is also one of the very few potentially effective means to counter a cancellation attempt and to defend someone from a cancellation mob. Thus, by saying that you're engaging in cancel culture and are equally bad to the far left, Dev is ultimately arguing that you shouldn't be allowed to defend someone from a cancellation attempt. That you should apparently just simply let it happen. So in practical terms, Dev's position can only serve to assist the far left. It is not a neutral position at all, nor is it a reasonable position. What it ultimately is a defense of cancel culture, both on technical and on practical grounds. Or at least a defense of far leftist cancel culture on those grounds. And speaking of tribalism, there is one other factor I believe is worth considering that Artemis Fowl didn't bring up, but I will here, that being the target of the cancellation mob, Kirche herself. It's not exactly a big secret that Dev is not on good terms with Kirche at this point. In fact, he's currently, according to his own words, working on a response video that is critical of both Kirche as well as myself. And this does lead one to wonder whether or not Dev is taking up this particular stance exclusively because it is Kirche that is being targeted. That does ultimately seem to be a reasonable concern to have, considering all the tribalism that Dev has been engaging in as of recently. And should this be the case, that would speak very much to Dev simply abandoning any sense of principles he may have left, to a rather disgusting degree. For example, compare Dev's behavior, if you will, to, say, how I reacted back when Dev got banned last time off of Twitter, aka X. When that happened, I did not celebrate it, I did not try to both sides it, and ultimately I supported him getting his channel back. Admittedly, there were pragmatic reasons as to why I wanted Dev to get his channel back, but there were also principled reasons as well. Twitter, aka X, should be a free speech platform, and that does ultimately ultimately mean having people on there that you don't politically agree with. And it doesn't matter the fact that I hate Dev's guts. Nor does it matter that Dev doesn't actually believe in free speech himself. He still shouldn't have been banned for that. And I still ultimately saw it as an absolute win when he finally got his channel back, a few days later. But here's the main thrust of my argument with that final point. Comparing my conduct with regards to Dev getting banned off of Twitter, aka X, and Dev's conduct towards the news of Kirche getting cancelled and losing a sponsorship is very much a night and day difference. In my opinion, it does ultimately reflect upon the sort of person that Dev truly is, once you scratch the surface, and put his principles to the test. And so far, the results have not exactly been flattering for Dev. Now, for those curious, I will of course be providing links in the description below to the Twitter thread itself, so you can check it out for yourself if you should so desire. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.